Good afternoon. Today is Thursday, March 14th, and it is the 5th week of Lent. Our Christ Church community is journeying through a Lenten devotional that was created by folk from our own church, and it's called Life, Death, and Life Again. For this 5th week of Lent, our theme is judgment, which is inspired by John 12, in which it says, "Now is the judgment of this world. Now the ruler of this world will be driven out. And I, when I am lifted up from the earth, will draw all people to myself." This bit of the gospel in which Jesus teaches reflects on how in his life, death, and resurrection, God revealed God's judgment of the world. Its systems of violence and destruction that put Jesus to death are not stronger than the ways of God's kingdom and life again. How can we find life again in a world of injustice and oppression? Today, church member Michael Tofte shares his reflection.
When I received the theme for this week's Lenten devotional, I saw bolded judgment. My anxiety flashed back to me as an elementary kid reading the Left Behind books. I had feared the rapture, having had regular mild anxiety attacks if I ever couldn't find my parents because they were gardening or running errands. I panicked even now in my mid-20s, reflecting on the idea of judgment and that I would have nothing meaningful to say. However, turning to this week's verses in John 12, I noticed two things that I never noticed before surrounding the judgment of this world portion. First, Jesus iterates the necessity of laying down one's life and following Christ, suggesting that judgment is a cooperative experience between God and the disciple. Second, Jesus ends the text to reassure that he will draw all people to himself. Contrary to a retributive view, Christ's judgment possesses a healing and reparative element. I always learn better through analogies. So I want to walk through another gospel author's reflections from later that night. In Luke 22, the author establishes a system of localized violence. "Lord, should we strike with the sword?" One of the disciples struck the servant of the high priest, and present were officers of the temple police. In response, we see that Jesus' practice of judgment is threefold and offers a parallel for us as Christ followers. First, Jesus prophetically calls out truth to power and peace to disorder. No more of this violence, which he does not distinguish between parties. Like Jesus, we are empowered to judge the oppressors, systems, and violence by pointing to the truth that is Christ and revealed by him in our world. Second, Jesus heals and repairs the damage present in healing the man's ear. Jesus demonstrates that Christ-like judgment draws the world closer to Christ and truth, bringing healing and recreation into a more peaceful, meaning whole and united world. Third, Jesus leaves the systems of oppression and violence satirized and obsolete by demonstrating greater healing power than any act of violence, present and still surrendering willing. If the first two portions of prophetic rebuke and reparative healing seem tiring and futile, we can rest unlike my young self, knowing that the power of Christ leaves all violent and evil systems a parodied shell and that they are defeated already in Christ's crucifixion.
What about you? How do you think we find life again in a world full of injustice and oppression? Check out what Michael and what others have to say in this week of our devotional that you can find online at christchurchnyc.online, where we also have info about everything else we're up to from our Thursday nights in Lent, our Holy Week plans, and so much more.